I decided I decided to do the next series on something that really I had a very hard time finding information about, but with some of my knowledge and some of the classes that I've learned over the years, I decided that I would really want to compile this for myself. So the next class that we're doing is called Rooted in Strength, and it's delving deep inside the lives of our Jewish mothers of Torah and beyond. Okay, we're going to go from Sarah to Sarah, really. And through their stories, we're going to draw out very practical lessons that help encourage our own purpose and power. So I'm going to start before with a really good story. I'm sure you've all heard it over Hanukkah, but this left me with such an impact, this story, that I felt it was befitting to start this series with it. And it's on the story of a man named Eliasaph Maria. Did anybody hear this? Mm-hmm. I'm the first time you guys are hearing this story? Yeah. Okay, then I'm going to tell you because maybe I'm not going to say it the best. You must watch this video. It was mind-boggling, okay? Elia Mariasaph is a simple painter in the south that lives in the south in Israel. A simple painter with his sprays and his paintbrushes, not much of a big fellow. But his story is a crazy one, okay? Close to the times of the war, we know that when rockets are fired in the southern part of Israel, people have 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to run for shelter. Okay? Israel, as advanced as it is, went ahead and built what we call migayot, like the bomb shelters, right? They created these white panel structures and placed them all around certain areas of southern Israel to make sure that if anybody has to run for cover, they could run to the nearest shelter. And Eliasaph Maria felt that these white shelters were very bland in color. Think about a mother and a child that has to run for cover and is in fear because these rockets are falling from the skies. So they were very bland and they were scary. And if anything, these cool colors that they had frightened more a child than anything else. So he decided, this painter in the southern of Israel, to paint them. Butterflies, a child, a cow, a calf, kids holding hands, something animatic, like cinematic, and something with a lot of bright and vibrant colors, so that any child with their mother or anybody running for shelter could feel a sense of calmness while looking at these illustrations. Okay? This is Eliasaph Maria. When October 7th came along, and the people were well aware that they were under attack, and they were under the impression that there was a mini Holocaust happening. Okay, yeah, a mini Holocaust happening. They ran for these shelters, and when they were texting their loved ones, because they were like, there are terrorists in the streets and we don't know what to do, they would ask you, where are you? We need to locate you. We need to call the closest people. We need to run towards you to find you. Where are you? And in fear and with understanding of what was really going on, they had no idea. The only thing they could identify is the shelter and the picture that was there. I'm in a cave and I see two young boys in a pathway following a butterfly. I'm in the cave and I see a sheep following a flock. I'm in a cave and I see the bumblebee that is on top of the cow. And imagine that, a painter that thought he had no real purpose and he was just as simple as his paintbrushes and his spray bottles, is now more purposeful and the most important person, because he was able to identify every single shelter that he painted and was able to help the IDF know where to place where the text messages were coming. Not Bibi, not the IDF. Nobody else was able to identify what these people were snapping pictures of. Only the painter was able to know it's in the northwest here, it's down by the bay there. Only that man was able to show where the text message were coming, where the people were hiding, and what shelters they were at.
That's amazing. How many shelters?
He was able to find at least 8 or 9 of people hiding there because they didn't know where they were. They couldn't identify a street. It wasn't safe for them to go out. All they could identify was the picture on the wall that they saw. And this draws on a very, 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 very significant idea, one that I started my nurturing connection with. He thought he was just a painter, but actually, when October 7th came around, or by October 6th, he was a painter. By October 7th, he was the most called upon person to identify these shelters. One day, he thinks he's just a simpleton, and then after, he's more important than Bibi and the whole IDF system. That comes to tell you that every single person has a purpose. While you think you don't or you do, just like Eliasaph that thought he just came in and he was, just being intricate with his brushes and his paint, was now the most popular person at the time to help find these people that were in fear and scared. So when we can understand that we each have a purpose, and we can understand that even if we have a skill as a simple painter, or a mother, or a teacher, or identify whatever you'd like, you can understand that your skill sets, whatever God gave you, has a purpose that maybe is not so apparent like that of Eliasaph Maria, but you have to understand that there's something that you can only do. Up until October 8th, it was only him that was needed, that was on call, when before he thought he was just doing some paintings. Now, we learn a lot of our purpose, and we learn a lot of our strength, and we can identify and resonate with a lot of qualities within the qualities that we learn about the Imaot. Okay? And my class now, Rooted in Strength, is going to go upon different characters in the Bible, women in the Bible, and we're going to draw out their specific characters. If it resonates with you, know that it pours down from generation. What Sarah Imenu, Rivka Imenu, Leah and Rachel, what they had within the Torah, their kind of strengths are inactive today with us. And we could see that we actually stretch that muscle because they once gave it to us. Mm-hmm. So you might identify with one of the characters that we're going to talk about more than others, but know that learning their story, you're going to find your own story. So let's jump in. The first series today is talking about the foundation of the nation. Foundation of the nation is the 4 Imaot. Now, I can't tell you that I'm not excited to talk about Sarah because there's a Sarah in the room also. But aside from the fact that the name has a significance, you're going to know, not maybe by me, by thinking about another Sarah, that each character, each mother had a lot of strength, different strengths. But together, the 4 Imaot, the 4 matriarchs, set up the foundation of actually a Jewish home. So I'm giving you the punchline. The 4 mothers laid out the groundwork of what it meant for us to cultivate a home. So let's start with Sarah. If anybody can jump in and tell me, if you had to think of one quality that you could name for Sarah Imenu, what would you say? Sarah Imenu, if you had to title her with one quality. Patience. It's a good one. Gvura. Interesting. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, Gvura. Strength. All of them is strength. All of them is strength. But like, if you had to dissect strength into another adjective or support, partnership. Emunah. 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 It did. But Sarah, from just some background information on Sarah. Sarah actually came from a very prestigious family, very refined, like a very royal family. And yet she found Avram, who was with his theories at the time of one God, of one source of power that was coming across very dramatically and challenged this whole idol worship with the idea of monotheism, right? With the philosophy of one God. And within that, she left her royal of a home, a city girl. She left and she decided to follow her husband, an unwavering faith. Sarah Imenu, despite a very challenging life, was a person of refined emunah. So much so that at the end of the year of her years, they say she lived 127 years. And some commentaries say that within 127 years of a lot of tribulation, she kept her faith at every time. So let's like recount a little bit of her story. First, she was told to leave her birthplace with Avram, right? In the Parshas of Lech Lecha. She says to just leave, to go wherever God commands them to leave. And so they leave the comfort of their home to go and install in a place. Together there, at that point, there was a big famine. They had not what to eat. So, okay, I leave my beauty of a home. I'm now married to somebody that is preaching different kind of concepts to the world. We come and we listen to God that tells us to go out of where my comfort is to a foreign place. And now there's not what to eat. Already that kind of would tamper my trust, my belief, no, that would kind of rock the boat already. But instead, no, they went down. And Avram saw that she was beautiful, asked her to be her sister. She was abducted by an Egyptian king at the point. She stayed faithful and said that she was her sister in order so that they wouldn't, right? They came back, and for a majority of her life, she was a childless mother. A majority of her life, she set up a tent, and her idea was to convert the women and Avram to convert the man. But many times when people would come over to her house, despite the fact that it was all very hard for her, she was on a mission. She supported her husband. So who said supportive? So she was a big supporter of her husband, but more than that, the Mefarshim say that she was more of a Neviah than her husband. She was actually one of the 7 prophetess of the Torah. Sarah Imenu was the first one. She's also named as one of the most beautiful of the Torah. So her leadership qualities, she had it. She came in, she converted, and anybody that converts actually is given the name Bas Sarah because she was the mother of all the ones that came into Judaism. Now, there was not Judaism at the time, but we're talking about the idea of one God, okay? More than that, she saw that as the years passed on, she didn't have a child. She was a childless mother. And she resorted the energy of not having a child and seeing those birth around her to just be a giver. Okay, I don't have my own child to suckle on me. I will go ahead and I will teach Torah. I will open my home so that it should be festive, that anybody that wants to come to learn will come to learn. But then when she saw that she didn't have what to give her husband a child, a princess, Hagar was actually a princess that she actually found in Egypt when she was abducted. She took with her Hagar. She brought her back to where they were settled. And she said, I would like for you to be with my husband, her cherishable husband, so that you could breed him a son. So even at that point, she kept her faith. Even at that, she understood that there was some kind of continuity, right? Continuity, and it wasn't coming from her. It might have come from Hagar, which Ishmael came about from Hagar, right? We know the story. After that, the story of the 3 Balachim that come and joke to her, tell her that she's going to have a son at a ripening age of 90 years old. And she laughs and she mocks the idea. But yes, she had a child at 90 years old. And she called him Yitzchak because she laughed. So much so, the Midrash says that in case anybody was skeptical that it was actually her child, she, at the age of 90, she actually got back her period. Her gray hair actually became black again. She was so full of milk that she nursed the children around. And for anybody that would think that like 90 years old and now you have a child, Yitzchak was a spitting image of her father, Avram. Okay? And then she saw that as her son was getting older, and they circumcised her son, and they circumcised Ishmael. Ishmael was a bad influence on him. He was a grown man. At that age, he was 13 years old. And she had told her husband, she said, I see how they play outside, and I see how with the bow and arrow, he almost even killed her son, Yitzchak. I don't want such an influence in my home. Now, Avram, it was his son. So he said, I can't send him away. He's a child of mine. And then the pasuk comes to say, anything that Sarah will say, you must listen. And this is the first time that we recognize that Sarah actually was a bigger nevuah than Avram. That Hashem is saying, anything that she says, you must listen. Anything that she tells you, there is bracha in her words. So let's draw down what we're learning from Sarah. Unwavering faith.
Mhm.
Whatever rocks the boat, she stays true to her identity of being true to God. Okay? A second one, when she sees the bad influence, she sees that there is a infiltration in her home that is not a good one. The protection. You know, Sarah was the perfect combination of opening her ohel, understanding that people should come in so that she could influence. She has a sphere of influence on people, but she was also very, very strict on her boundaries. Who said gvura? You said gvura. She was a person that defined the lines. I understand that this child Ishmael is not good for my son, so that I want him out. I'm protecting the corners of my house so that if I see a bad influence comes in, I push it away. And the third thing, if we have to draw down for Sarah Imaot, the third thing is the fact that she had three special mitzvahs that would go from one week to the next. Her candle stayed lit from one Shabbat to the next. Her dough rose from one Shabbat to the next. The cloud of the glory would stay or hover around, which identifies the Shekhinah. Now, actually, Sarah Imaot, I would have to say, built the idea of the temple. Her idea of a home was then taken for the idea of a Bet HaMikdash. In the Bet HaMikdash, we have the menorah, which is significant to our Shabbos candles. We have the bread loaves
Mhm.
that were also the lapat, right? Her dough.
Mhm.
And then we had the idea of the Shekhinah that would reside in the temple.
Mhm.
So the truth is, Judaism, you don't need to do a lot of your mitzvot in the shul, in a temple. We're not somebody that celebrates our Judaism in a synagogue or a church, or we don't need to go to an outside place. Our mitzvot, a lot of our activity is pivotal in the Jewish home. And Sarah laid that groundwork. Actually, most of the mitzvot that we can do are in the home. Kashrut is done in the home. Tefillah, you could daven yachid actually in your home. You know, yes, the man has to go out and then actually make a common area. But Sarah laid the groundwork that Judaism is celebrated actually in the four corners of in the four walls of our house. And she brought the energy of this is my home that is open, that is giving, but is protected. I'm a person of faith that despite anything that comes and challenges me, I'm a person that will remain completely committed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So those are the energies that we learn from Sarah Imaot. It's already a big one.
So the clouds of glory are what showed that, like, and all the mitzvos that.
So actually, the clouds of glory is Taras HaMishpacha, right? Is the keeping of family purity. So with that, the Shekhinah was able to reside and stay within her house, the laws of family purity.
The way that we know that beautiful thing that you said about most of our mitzvot, especially as women,
Yeah.
are fulfilled
In the
in
home.
the home.
Yeah.
That's represented through the clouds, or is it just all?
Or within her three mitzvahs. Meaning that it was a miraculous thing that her candle stayed lit from one Shabbos to the next. So we understood that God, you know, if later in the years there was yeshivas that were built, but it is told that God's Shekhinah for the first time that reside was within a home, within the context of a home. So that's where the Shekhinah actually hopes to be down, right? And that we learn from Sarah Imaot. So just to reiterate, Sarah Imaot taught us unwavering faith. Doesn't matter rain or shine, doesn't matter storm, doesn't matter what's going on, what's going to be. I'm going to keep connected and trusting to my Father. He's my one and only Father. I trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So if that resonates with you, know that it's a quality that was given by Sarah Imaot. Unwavering faith. Another thing is the combination of protection. When to say the no? When is a yes and when is a no? What comes into my home? Where do I draw the line? Where do I feel like this can harm me or enhance me? Sarah Imaot had this very, very good combination of chesed and gvura, right? That well-defined borders. I want to just make sure that I have anything else. And the third one is the idea of the home being the pivotal place where godliness resides. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning she explained to us that all of our mitzvahs and everything that is celebrated in Judaism is not done necessarily in the synagogues. They're not done somewhere outside. The home is the place of worship. The home is the place where we could serve God the most. That's what she taught
But
us.
I think the most important is the previous love that every woman.
Yes,
does.
yes.
So she's the source.
She's the source of that. Now we know that when she passed away, Avram actually felt that his mission was done. So much so that the comments, if you really read the text, there's not much of Avram being his Avram chesed kind of self, because he felt that as his wife left him, yeah, almost like the, the heartbeat left. And the only thing that he was left to acquire was Marat HaMachpelah, which he purchased. Also, when she passed away, the candles stopped lighting, the challah stopped rising, the Shekhinah left until Rivka Imaot came into the thing. Now, Rivka, Baruch Hashem, I resonate with Rivka, even though I'm not a Rivka, to be honest. I learning on Rivka, I understood that she had a very hard life. Rivka's slogan, if you like, was that she was a rose amongst thorns. When Eliezer was told by Avram to go out to his birthplace, which was Haran, and to find a mate, to find somebody for his son Yitzchak, right? She came across a well, and he saw a beautiful, very young 3-year-old girl come up and draw water. And not only draw water for Eliezer after a travel, draw water for her camels. So Rivka, for one, is chesed. She represents kindness. So if you feel that you are a kind person, if you feel that you are a person of abundantful charity, know that you are given such a quality thanks to Rivka Imenu. But she was not common. Her life and her family context didn't teach her kindness. She lived amongst thieves. She lived amongst improper behavior. She had father, mother, brothers that were, what's the word? Crooks, trickeries. Yes, like dishonest people. So when Eliezer came to see, wow, what a beautiful, like fond girl, let's meet the family. When he came to meeting the family and he saw what kind of, he's going to come home to his master and say, like, the yichus there is not the best, like it was a really dishonest family. And he almost saved Rivka out of that context to bring her. And she, by the way, the Midrash tells us that she was dying for him to just take her on his camel and return her. Yeah. He asked her, she said, please. But the sentence that we give to Rivka is that she was a rose amongst thorns. But we know that Hashem doesn't do anything for nothing. Actually, the fact that she comes from such trickery family, the fact that she comes from such a low family context is the point that propels her to make the proper decisions moving forward. It's like you want to know where you're going, you got to know where you're coming from. Yeah. That's Rivka. What's the story behind Rivka? Rivka, when she was pregnant, she felt a tug right in her stomach. Every time she would see the idol worship home, she felt one kind of movement in her stomach. And every time she was close to a house of tefillah, a synagogue, she would feel another tug in her stomach. And she would come to the Beit of Shem, which was Noah's children, and she would ask them, like at the time, the Rabbanim, she would ask him, what's going on in my stomach? At one point where I see idolatry, there's a tug on one point, and then all the time, another point where I see there's a synagogue, I feel another tug, like what's going on? And she says, there's a birth of two, and it will be 2 nations that will come out of you. So we know that we're going through Rivka, there is birth, a nation of idol worshippers, and a nation of faithful to one God. When she had Esav and Yaakov, Yitzchak favored Esav. Rivka favored Yaakov. Why is that? Esav was a child that was the combination of two. He was knowledgeable in Torah, but yet he was a hunter. He was like a kind of a peri adam. He had rough skin. He was like the hunter, like what you could imagine as a hunter. And every time his father would come home, he would be a trickster. He would ask him, he said, Father, question, how do you give 1/10 of salt? He wanted to show him that he knew the halacha behind maser, but there's no real maser when it comes to salt. So he was a trickery kind of guy, but because Rivka came from that, she was able to sniff it out. She was able to see it. She was able to identify that this is where I come from and this is what I'm seeing in my own child. Whereas Yaakov was the humble one, the kind one, the one that kind of wanted to be sheltered into the yeshiva. And the commentaries actually ask, why did Yitzchak favor Esav? So there is a Hasidic concept that the lower you are, the higher potential you have. Anybody that's at the lowest has a potential to amount to the highest. And the truth is that Esav did have a potential to be much greater than Yaakov. Except within his free choice, he decided not to. He decided to stay in the realm of being a trickery, of being a crook, being, sly. So when it came time for Yitzchak at a very old age where he was blind, you have a question?
I
Yes.
don't know if it's where you want to go with this.
Yeah.
But, how could Asa, chosen his free will? Like, why is it that it was so complicated for him to just choose Torah versus, trickery?
So I mean that in like as it unfolds, it had to be that, right? Because then after the blessing really had to come to Yaakov, which is really our nation.
Right.
So yes, there was a free choice, but no, there wasn't a free choice because God chose us as a nation. Meaning he did have the potential to be a tzaddik, but he chose to kind of live in this material work and stay stuck there, right? And that is a free choice of his, but it's not a free choice because God ultimately wanted us to get the blessing that came from Yaakov.
But why couldn't there be both
It's a good question.
Rachel and Tzaddikim?
It's a good question.
Like, Hashem could have chosen us, but there could have also been a
Right.
lot more peace in the
Right.
world.
Yeah. Well, there is a nation that came out of Asa, right?
Also, yes, sir.
Yeah. But there's a nation that came out of Asa, right? What is the nation that came out of Asa? Christianity. Like, it's a following that came out of Asa. And yeah, at the end they said that I don't know if I remember hearing. I don't want to say anything that's not accurate, but there is a nation that came out of Esav, and I guess that was God's plan, that ultimately the Jewish nation had to come out of Yaakov, which leads me to the next point, right? When Yitzchak was of old age and he was blind, he was really not all there. Rivka went ahead and told Yaakov, Yaakov, her younger son, when Esav was getting ready to get the blessing. She garmented him with fur. She wanted him to go and get the blessing, and she said, "Please, please, please, your father right now is alone. Go and get the blessing that he wants to give to Esav." And Yaakov wasn't for it. He said, "This is wrong. This is tricking my father into believing that I'm the other brother." And Rivka in the text goes ahead and says, "I will take it on me," because as a mother, she had to make a very tough decision. She has two children, one that she wishes would both grow equally and properly within the perfection that they could have attained. But she sees that one is in the derech of Torah and in the derech that Hashem, that she knew that was the right one. And she saw one, because of her past and because of her upbringing, was going in the same direction. And so she had to make a tough decision. She had to do something unconventional, and because of her context of growing up, she was able to have that nivuah. She was able to make that decision. So from Rivka, we learn kindness. And from Rivka, we learn making hard decisions. We learn that sometimes there are uncomfortable decisions that we have to make, but the strength of a woman and the strength of a mother calls for those kinds of decisions. They're painful, but they're necessary. And what did it bring? It bring that Yaakov was going to lead all of Am Yisrael. Why? Because he brought about 12 nations, and we are each a derivative of those 12 nations.
But I think Esav had a second chance to do the
He
Shuvah
did at the
uh,
end when they met, yes,
by Dina.
by Dinah.
Exactly, but Yaakov didn't have them, so that's another.
There's another story there, yes. Okay, so a rose amongst thorns. I forgot to say something beautiful from the Balatanya. Making hard decision, and then the past serves for the future. Another idea that the Balatanya actually brings down in terms of her being met at the well is that Rivka, amongst her past, is able to draw out spirituality. The idea that he met her and he drew out water, the Alter Rebbe comes and says that it doesn't matter if you come from a home that didn't breathe no Torah mitzvot. Within your own neshama, you can draw from the deepest well and draw out godliness like Rivka. So this resonates with me. I mean, Baruch Hashem, my family was always like, you know, and they were always like, I would say I had the most religious father in high school, with the long skirt. But all I could tell you is that you know, for people or a friend of mine, I remember who took on oh, somebody's raising her hand. Lauren Cohen is raising her hand. Oh, hi. Oh, okay. Um, so I don't. So the
There's
idea is,
only
oh,
it's my baby. He's playing with the computer.
okay, no problem. Hi. No, the idea is that I had a friend for a year. She comes from a background that is completely secular. Her parents only put her into a Jewish school just to mark and like, you know, put the fact that she's in a Jewish school. And for a year, she spent Shabbat by my home. Because for a year, she really wanted to like experience that experience. And I remember that was like a very powerful thing for me and my family. But where does that come from? You have parents that are literally serving, you know, bacon on a Sunday morning. And all of a sudden you want to come to a Shabbos table. Where does that come from? It doesn't make sense, you know, in a way. It doesn't add up. So know that a Jewish neshama is a Jewish neshama. And the Alter Rebbe comes to say that Rivka also was in a house of crooks, and yet she was thirsty, envious, wanting, yearning so badly to come with Eliezer because she knew that she would live a bountiful life that would be committed to Hashem. Where does that kind of energy come from? That within the depth of her soul, she also drew out godliness. So know that even if you were born and raised in a family that's not necessarily aligned with Torah mitzvahs, that within your soul you could draw in that same energy. Rivka. Yeah, for sure. And by the way, because you said that, one person once came up to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and asked him. He said, "We have a suggestion, but it's not from Yichudis background. Like, you know, we come from a certain lineage." And the Rebbe, obviously, with his profound answers, went ahead and said, "And Avram, and Rivka and Leah, did they come from prestigious lineage?" Right. Leah. Oh, Leah. I discovered Leah as I was discovering her. I have a Leah Esther. I have a Leah Esther. So when I saw this, I was like a little, you know, I wish I would have known a little bit, but Baruch Hashem. Leah is an introvert. Whereas we have to put her with her sister. Rachel is an extrovert. Leah represents the chokhmah, the thoughts, what stays up here. So much so that the Midrash says that Yaakov wasn't attracted to her because she kept it all inside. Leah, not attracted to her as much as Rachel. Rachel was the life of the party. She was extrovert. She was an extrovert there. She would come and she would have grand ideas and she would share them, whereas Leah was more inwards. She was the mind of thought. It said that Leah had weeping and soft eyes because she cried all her days, because she knew from divine providence that she was ordained for Esav. And she didn't want to be the wife of Esav. She didn't want to be the wife of a crook. She wanted also the part of godliness, of living Hashem. And so she cried and cried and cried every single day until it changed the decree that she was not going to marry Esav and that she was going to be the first wife of Yaakov. The Midrash says that she cried for every day. Well, and we know this. We know the story, or we can go over the story that when Yaakov saw Rachel, it's almost the most romantic story we have in the Torah, right? He absolutely fell in love with her so much that he kissed her and he wept. And the Midrash says that the weeping came from the fact that he knew she wasn't going to be buried next to her, and that he knew that like things are going to pan out that are not going to make that he's going to be his first beloved. And he came to Lavan, he asked for the hand of Rachel, and he said, "No problem, work for me for 7 years." 7 years he worked, and because Rachel knew that her father was going to trick Yaakov, she told her sister not to shame her. These are the small secrets that Yaakov and I exchanged the night of our wedding. I'm going to share them with you because I don't want you to be embarrassed. Because I know that come 7 years, when he asks for my hand, Leah in turn is gonna be under that veil. And Leah was under that veil. And she was given the secrets from her sister Rachel. And we're gonna talk about when we talk about Rachel. But Leah teaches us one profound thing, going in as a mother, going in as a wife, that, and I want to say it right, hold on, that you can turn pain into prayer. You can turn pain into prayer. And with her sensitive soul, she knew that any challenge is meant to bring growth. She's so practical, Leah. Leah, actually, by the way, you know what Leah means in Hebrew? Anybody know what Leah means in Hebrew? Exhaustion. Why would you ever call your daughter exhaustion?
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion. Leah in Hebrew comes from the words exhaustion. And if you don't want to quote me, Rabbi Jacobson says, but she was exhausted because she knew that a neshama that comes down to this world is going to be faced with many struggles and challenges. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And through that, you have two options. You can either bask in it, or you can take the power that you have to meditate and to pray and change a challenging situation to a growing one. Leah represents growth pains,
Wow,
changing a situation of one to another.
so funny.
Yeah. She teaches to turn pain into prayer, to elevate challenges to growth. She knew that there was suffering in the world, and her sensitivity told her that there is growth in these challenges.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to say that it's not a beautiful name. I'm not telling you not to call your daughter Leah. I mean, all of them are suffered in their life. That's, you know, we understand that. But
Oh, beautiful.
Leah really comes to teach us that, like, newsflash, you're going to be a neshama that comes into this world that's very material, that comes with a lot of challenges. Nobody lives without challenges. You have two options. You can take those challenges and bring them back to Hashem, pray on it, ask for it. So much so that she actually was very sensitive to her sister Rachel when she was birthing many boys, that she changed the gender of one of her children. One of her children that was in her stomach, she prayed and prayed and prayed that it should be a girl, so that she could give one of a boy to Rachel, so that there could be some lineage in the 12 Shvatim, that she changed the gender of her baby to Dina, to be a girl. Leah teaches us profound prayer. Leah teaches us that through a very hard situation, we can grow through it. We could transform it through our meditation, through our prayer. She's also, by the way, the first one to show gratitude to Hashem through prayer. She called her son Yehuda. Yehuda means grateful am I. Thank you, Hashem. Yehuda comes from leodot, to give praise.
Mhm.
So from Leah, we know she's an introvert. We know about self-introspection, struggles bring growth, prayer and inner transformation, and the belief in our prayer. So let's just go back. Sari Meinu, unwavering faith. And the difference between Gvura and Chesed, knowing when to protect your home, and the ultimate, that our Judaism is celebrated in a home. Rivka is from your past, you will know your future. Don't think that your past is counted for nothing. Where you come from will map the roads to where you're going, right? With her trickery family, she's able to identify where the trickery would come, and she was able to give the bracha to Yaakov. And kindness. We learn kindness from Rivka and Chesed, yes. From Leah, we learn inner transformation. Prayer can transform any difficult situation. Leah was also necessary because vis-a-vis our relationship with Hashem, if Rachel was the idea of redemption amongst the nation, being extrovert, Leah teaches us that in our quiet times, forget about what influence we have to do in the world. When we're alone with Hashem, we also need to perfect our relationship. And there's a lot out there about the dynamic between Leah and Rachel, and why really Yaakov had to marry both of them. Okay, on to Leah, to Rachel. Rachel really represents an internal bond between Hashem and the Jewish nation, right? Rachel was not privileged to be buried next to her husband. She died at the second childbearing of Binyamin, and Yaakov buried her like on a road ditch, really, that today is known to be Bethlehem, right? Rachel is the world of speech. She was an extrovert. When she felt something needed to be done, she did it. When she understood that she was not going to marry her husband and had to give the signs to Leah, she did it. When she felt that like she was not going to have a child, she asked for it. Like, she made the noise. You understand? She was a doer. She was a goer. She was
A fixer.
a fixer. Yes, she was a fixer. Who knows what Rachel actually means in Hebrew?
The name?
Yeah, so from her name, yeah, actually, it's a sheep.
Okay.
Rachel means a sheep, which means that she had a very refined and quiet nature, but she actually, it's the sheep that leads the herd. So that's how we know that she has an empowering personality. Okay, so I want to just look at it in the text because I don't want to get it wrong. Where's my Rachel? Hold on. I shared something by Rachel Imenu. Anybody remember? So I shared. Where's my Rachel? Rachel Leah. Rachel. Okay. Rachel's acronym to her name, actually, if you take Resh, Chet, and Lamed, is 238, which is the same acronym of Yehior, because she was a light. She was a big, big hidden light, but she was a big light. Why is she combined to Malchut, which is kingship?
Wait, it's the same, Rachel.
Is the same
Gematria.
Yehior. Rachel knew that she could have been buried next to her husband, but the Mefarshim tell us that she chose not to, because she understand, being Malchut, that there was going to come a time that the Jewish people were going to be exiled from the Bet HaMikdash, and they were going to need to be consoled. They were going to need to feel a love. And who would they go to? Because all of them are by the kever of Marat HaMachpelah. She knew that she'd rather be where her children needed her. So that's why we call Rachel the quintessential mother. Because the call of a child, she's there to listen. You could see through her life that anytime that there was something, she stepped up to the plate. She knew she wasn't going to have her sister. She gave her sister the simanim so that she can be with her husband. She knew that she wasn't going to have so many children. She prayed and prayed and prayed and even, knocked her husband on the head about it. She knew that there's going to come a time that the Jewish people were going to be exiled. They had to come to a place on the road ditch that they would need to be comforted. And that was Rachel, showing up, being there. It's more important for me to take away from the holiness of being in Marat HaMachpelah. Forget that. I rather be where my children are, where I can comfort them, where I can console them, where I can care for them, where I can hear them cry and they can find comfort in me. That's Rachel.
What is it? I forgot what it's called. The
Kever Rachel, yeah. In Beis Lechem. Kever Rachel.
That-
In Beis Lechem. And there's a famous, right? There's a famous Eicha that comes to tell us that Rachel asks, when the Jewish people are exiled from the Bet HaMikdash, Rachel comes and she advocates to Hashem and she says, I am the one that self-sacrificed so much in my life.
Wow.
I am the one that had so much. Everybody else, had their share. But I forgave the holiness of being next to Adam and Chava, Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka. I forgave it also. I can be there for my children. And so when my children will weep, and when my children need an embrace, and when my children will need comforting, you will give it to them because I am crying and I'm weeping. And God responds, dry your eyes, right? Rachel mevake al banea. Dry your eyes, for your children will return back to their borders. Now, why is Rachel Malchut? Malchut is the source of souls. The souls come to this very low place of earth. Just like Rachel, she understands that we are suffering sometimes, that we want godliness, but we are inhibited, we are trapped sometimes in the mundane, in the in the material. Our neshama wants upwards, but our body wants to stay downwards. And Rachel is the mother of Malchus because of that pasuk that she gets consoled. Dry your eyes. We will come back to our borders. There will come a time that the small flame that we hear inside our soul that wants God will come back to God. Will come back to that quintessential essence of all of us wanting purity, godliness. And Rachel embodies that. She comes back to the original source. She's a comforting mother. She's the quintessential mother that despite if he's a rebel, despite if he's good, if he's bad, I'm his mother. I stay there to comfort him and care for him and love for him. And she teaches us that we will all go back to what we really, really, if we unravel it all, to what we really, really want, and that's Hashem. Rachel Imenu. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything there. Oh, and because she's Malchut, she's dignity and pride. That's another thing. Rachel is Malchut because, yes. Yes, so I have to say dignity and pride. So when we understand and when we reestablish that all we really want is godliness, we are reestablishing the pride and dignity that we have within ourselves. You know, when a child is kind of broken because maybe there was a broken framework of a home. Maybe there was divorced parents that kind of fragmented their pride. So they lose a sense of self-dignity. That's an example, but all of us have a little bit of fragmented self-dignity. Comes Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we try to repair that pride and that self-dignity, the self-worth of what our neshama is in essence. Rachel was crying because she felt the fragmentation of our souls when we were exiled from our holy temple. And she wants to repair that self-dignity. Just like just like us as parents, sometimes we see that our child is insecure. We want so badly to repair that. You know, when your child feels like, I'm not good enough, I wasn't good, I wasn't chosen on the basketball team, or I didn't do well on the test, we so badly want to give that pride to our child. We learn that and activate that through Rachel Imenu. And she is Malchut because there's fireworks happening. Oh, okay. She is Malchut because just like the idea that the souls come from Malchut, from the Keter of Keter, and then come down to this world, she identifies of wanting to repair what was broken within us, within our children. So she's the quintessential mother and the dignified Ima. So let's recap. And I'm going to tell you also why it's so important that we do this. And I'm going to tie back to I never say his name right. Eliasaf Maria. Thank you. Eliasaf Maria. It's a hard word. Sarah Imenu is unwavering faith and understanding how to execute between the different boundaries of Chesed and Gvura. Rivka is knowing our past to promote our future, and Chesed and kindness. Leah is transforming any situation into a good one and growing through a challenging and struggling situation. Rachel is Malchut. Rachel is a quintessential mother. Rachel is, we're going to repair once more, and we're going to go back to the source of what we really want. If that is not a foundation of a home, if you don't draw out on all of these energies and you implement them in our home, they are known to be the foundation of our nation because they are the ingredients that we need to build a home. All four of those mothers give us the qualities that we need to build a home. Now, why is it so important that we speak about the women of the Torah? Because guess what, ladies? The Mashiach will be coming. I don't want to say not from the prayers that our husbands are doing in shul, but it is the women of the Torah. It is the women that will bring those tambourines and will dance and we'll learn about Miriam because you'll see through the course outline, there are different characters that we're going to learn on. But we have a purpose. Eliasaf Maria thought he was just a painter. He thought he was just supposed to paint a canvas and make a mother and a child happy. But then after October 7th, he was the most called upon person to step up to the plate. We are the most called upon people as women. We have such an important significance, purpose in this world. And if we can't draw out from the strength of the first initial thought of our Imaot, then where will we find it echoing inside of us if not for our mothers? So from these four women, we learn something's going to resonate amongst you. I know for me it does. aside from the fact that I'm called a Sarah. But there's a quality that resonates from these Imaot. Use those qualities to understand that you have a purpose, just like Eliasaph Maria. He thought he was a painter. You think today you're just a teacher. You think today you're just a real estate broker. You think today you're just a mother. You think today you're just a teacher. I said teacher, a wife. You have a significance. You have a purpose. You are the most called upon person even tomorrow, today, just like Eliasaph Maria. Activate it, learn it. We're going to draw it from the different Imaot, and B'ezrat Hashem, one of these characters are going to become your favorite. I can guarantee. Okay.
Maybe the first one.
Thank you.
Refreshing, I have to say, I'm like,
I'm telling you,
I feel so good listening